Welcome to Earth-Centric Lighting, for everything lighting related and how to use lighting in your projects and life. Okay, guys, I'm super excited for you to hear today's episode. I've never heard anything like this, what this man has been through, the challenges he has faced and overcome, and then going back into adversity again and then keep pushing through it. It was very, very incredible. He's someone we're probably going to have on the show again because it was great getting to talk to him. And this is Greg Romero, and here's my interview with him. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I got Greg with me, and is it Greg Romero?
That's
How
right.
you say it? Yeah, Romero. And me and Greg first met uh, at the Kootenai County Fair doing a trade show. And when I met Greg, we were talking about what he was selling because he had a booth there, and so did I. I was selling line design services, and he had some medical devices, which we'll get into. But the more I started to talk to Greg, I was just very, very impressed hearing his life story and some of the things that has went on in his life and his challenges and things he's overcome and his successes. So first of all, I just want to say thanks for joining the show, Greg. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I think I would really like to have you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. And I know it's probably hard to just kind of jump right in there, but maybe like when we first had our conversation there at the fairgrounds, some of the things you've been through, or maybe some of the toughest things you've been through, and then some of the biggest successes that you've had.
Sure.
And yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, Travis, it's really an honor to be on your show, and just an honor to meet you, man. I think you're a great guy, father of four girls. I mean, that's amazing in itself. I mean, with what you're doing in business and in family, I mean, that's commendable. And yeah, it was exciting meeting you at that fair. That was in Idaho, I believe, right? Is that in
yep,
Idaho?
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Yep.
Portland, Idaho, which is honestly one of my new favorite places in the world, man. The people there are just amazing. The water there is amazing. And it was just an amazing fair. But yeah, when we first met, we actually met through my fiance. And it's funny because I often meet people when they are in some type of pain. For some reason, kind of pain has kind of been the platform at which I've had the opportunity to meet and to work with people throughout my lifetime, and I'll go over that here in a second with what I went through in my childhood. But if I recall, you were dealing with some pretty intense physical pain. You had some issues going on with your neck, and my fiance had put one of our units on you, and it really helped you, which I'm really grateful for. Oftentimes when we do these traveling tours, especially when we're at fairs, a lot of people don't take the vendor seriously. They're skeptical at what their solution can provide. But I like that kind of environment because to me, it's a testing ground to see, who's a true grit entrepreneur and who's in it, just to kind of test the waters and kind of fall off the wayside. What you had going on really impressed me with the lighting, and that's why I wanted to come and talk on the show. As a light is also another thing that is very key in what I do for helping people to recover from trauma, and we'll go into that as well. But that's kind of how we met, and you ended up getting one of our devices, which I definitely appreciate the business there, and hope that you're still using it.
Yep, yep. I still got it.
Awesome.
It works great.
I'll go
My
into that
kids, my
later.
kids use it now too.
Oh, fantastic. Great. My kids used it as well, and that's a great thing. We have a class 2 medical device that is designed to remove inflammation from the body, and a lot of people don't know that there are solutions out there other than pills, right? Like the temporary band-aids, like pills, or even a TENS unit that's going to be surface level, where this actually goes deep into the muscle and helps to clean out the muscle from calcium and lactic acid, and then also to regenerate muscle tissue if you have any micro tears or injuries like that. And the cool thing is, it's FDA approved. So, like you said, your kids are using it. Kids as young as 6 can use it. My kids uses it as well, and so really excited about that. But we'll go into that later. Want to dive right in and not bore the audience with that. But
Uh,
anyway, so just wanted to briefly share who I am. I am I'm a father. I'm a life partner to an amazing woman who is just on fire for God and is an amazing entrepreneur. I am a retired professional athlete. I skated professionally in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I've been an entrepreneur since I was about 6 years old. And that's where I'll start. Since this is more of a business minded show, I'll start with when I was 6 years old as an entrepreneur. And a lot of people tell me, wait a minute, you were 6 years old and you were an entrepreneur. How is that possible? Well, I kind of didn't have a choice. My childhood was full of adversity, and it really was a resiliency through perpetual crisis. Um, and so, as a kid, oops, I think I have somebody knocking. You need to come in, hey? Oh, anyways, I might get some
Eh,
interruptions here. I'm a very busy person, so if I do, my apologies. But
that's all good.
so when I was a child, I was actually homeless when I was a child. My parents were teenagers when they had me, and we didn't have really anything. We lived in a little teardrop camping trailer. If you guys know what that is, it's maybe enough to fit two grown adults, and much less having three children in there. But by the time I was 5 years old, it was me, which I'm the oldest, and I'm the oldest of four. And it was me, my younger brother, my younger sister, and then my youngest sister who passed away basically at birth. So we didn't really get to have her. But it was very adverse when we were a child. We lived off the land. We had no electricity, no running water. We used to have to take baths in a horse trough, literally warm water over a fire to get the water hot enough to be able to take a bath. So things like that, and used to have to hunt for food and things. So very 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 humble beginnings, literally having nothing. As I got older, there were some situations in my life where I was experiencing abuse from members of the community, family members, things like that, some trauma that really set me on a path of destruction. But my entrepreneurial journey started when I was in a position where I was literally hungry and I wanted some food. And I also wanted to help my parents because they were working three jobs. They were basically working three jobs each, trying to just keep food on the table, working like gas station jobs, very minimum wage type of positions. And I'm watching them work so hard and produce very little results. And I guess I've always been kind of observant since I was a young child. So just observing my parents kind of being the firstborn really struggle to get on their feet and really not being able to get on their feet, as far as from my perspective at that age. So I felt like I needed to do something about it. And my a friend had moved in, or this young boy had moved in a couple of houses down, and his father had come from Hawaii. They were working at his dad was working at a Winston cigarette factory, and little did I know he was smuggling boxes of cigarette cartons of cigarettes from the back of this warehouse that he was working at. So in his warehouse, he had literally floor to ceiling boxes, dude, stacked of cigarettes. Okay, and boxes. I'm 6 years old. My friend, he brought me in the garage. We were looking for stuff to play with in the garage, and I see all these boxes, and I'm like, what are all these boxes? What is all this? Like, is your dad own a company? Like, he sell product that had Winston on the side of it. He says, oh no, dude, my dad takes these cigarettes and he just smokes them. I'm like, that's a lot of cigarettes to smoke. And then all of a sudden, a light went off in my head. I got this idea of like, you know what? There's so many boxes here. I can probably take one of these boxes and sell these cigarettes to my friends because we were all experimenting at the time with smoking cigarettes and all that kind of stuff that young kids do. Maybe that's a little too young, but that was kind of my experience back then. But so I said, hey, do you think your dad would notice if a box was missing? And he said, well, no, I don't think so. And so I said, well, he says, why? So, well, I'm going to take one of the boxes and I'm going to sell these cigarettes at school for $1 a piece, $1 a cigarette. And I'm going to give you 25 cents for every cigarette that I sell if you keep your mouth shut. And that's literally the first business that I had. Now, that type of behavior that I was acting out in at that time, doing that was a direct reflection of what my family, my grandfather more specifically, was involved in. He was actually had some involvement in Mexican cartel organized crime activity. So as a young man, I got to see him interact in these different scenarios. So I kind of learned those skills from him. Um, Started selling cigarettes at school, started making money for lunch, started having money that to buy candy and stuff, and people started to notice that I had money. And long story short, I got caught. I got caught at school and got into trouble. I had to leave first grade. This is in the first grade, and I got into homeschooling. And in homeschooling, I did all of my work so quickly that I would get bored. And so when I would get bored, I'd get into trouble and all kinds of things. And my parents just really didn't know what to do with me because of the adversity I was going through. I don't want to, I want to go too much into that. I have another show that goes into more of the detailed issues of I had when I was a child, but I went through some pretty severe abuse when I was a child from various family members. And so my parents didn't know, they had no idea what was going on, that I was dealing with this childhood trauma. And so I just had OCD, ADHD. I couldn't sit still. I was very just always needed to be on the move. And so when I got in trouble, my dad really didn't know what to do with me. But he recognized though that I had this skill to sell product. And so around that age, 6, 7 years old, he bought a small table with, like a booth table, rented out a little 5x5 space at a flea market in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And he got a catalog with toys and got a bunch of toys that he invested in and put them on the table and said, okay, son, if you want to sell stuff and make money, sell this. And so I started, doing like fairs, I guess you could say, through a flea market. Started doing that. Within my first weekend, I made about $500 that first weekend just selling toys, and that started my entrepreneurial journey. It went on from that to then having a lemonade stand. And when I was a little bit older, with that lemonade stand, I turned that into a franchise where I would literally, I would buy a little wagon, I would make the lemonade, I would get the cups, and I would start making money. And my friends wanted to do it in their neighborhoods, so I would tell them, hey, listen, if you invest and you buy the wagon and all the materials, or have your parents buy it, I'll teach you how to sell and how to create these products. You just owe me 25% of every sale that you make. So I was already making these sales deals at 10, 11 years old, um, on the business side, but I was still very much influenced by the organized crime side of my family with my grandfather. At this time, around from 7, 8 till about 13 or 14, my parents were traveling a lot around the country. They were involved in the revival movement, where they would go across the country and do like tent revivals for ministry and things like that, while myself and my siblings were left at home with family to be cared for. But unfortunately, that led us into having a negative influence with organized crime. So I get into selling drugs when I was very young, and I started getting involved with organized crime and selling drugs, and I became very influential in that area, selling drugs when I was just a kid. I'm talking about 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Carrying weapons. I was very much a mobster, I guess you can say. I turned from a happy kid to a very angry kid. I was very aggressive. I was a hair trigger. Littlest thing would set me off if somebody looked at me the wrong way. And all this I thought was, I have to be strong. I have to be strong because this is the only way to get things that I need and things that I want in life. But eventually it would catch up with me. When I was 12 years old, I ended up uh, attempting to rob a store and was arrested for doing that just at 12 years old, trying to get initiated into a higher level of this gang that I was in. And I ended up getting on house arrest during that time, only 12 years old. And still not wanting to be tied down, I actually snuck out of my house and left to ride a motorcycle. Started skateboarding when I was 10, but I started riding a motorcycle and I crashed going about 45 miles an hour. And I broke my back in two places. I broke my neck. I broke my pelvis. I broke my hip, punctured my lung. I broke so many bones in my body. I nearly died. I went into cardiac arrest about 3 times, and had an incredible out of body experience. And I can go in again. That story can be heard on another podcast. But all these things were setting me up for the life that I feel God has for me now that I'm a grown up. When I was 10, we were still dealing with some financial difficulty. My parents really kind of never, it took them a while to get to a place of financial stability. When I was 10 years old, my sister found a skateboard behind a dumpster, and it was brand new skateboard, 80s style, the fish board that has like the, looks like a fish. Gave me that, and I started riding around Santa Fe. And I remember the first thing that I did is I got on the skateboard, didn't know how to ride it at all. I rode off the curb into the street, slipped, and I broke my arm. I broke my left arm doing that. And it to me, it didn't even hurt. Everybody was freaked out, had to go to the hospital, get a cast, whatever. But as soon as I got that cast on, I was right back on that skateboard because I was addicted to the adrenaline. And I very, very quickly, because the adrenaline helped me to feel like I was alive, because at that point, with everything that I had been through, I became very like apathetic. I had no empathy. I was very emotionless, just showing emotions of like either fear, anger, or aggression. That's pretty
Mhm.
much I know. And I would mask it with a smile, kind of a happy-go-lucky kind of a figure, but behind the scenes, I was in a lot of pain, emotional pain and physical pain. But when I got into this motorcycle accident, when I broke my back, I ended up getting paralyzed and I couldn't move my legs, couldn't move anything from my chest down. And the doctors actually told me that I wouldn't be able to use my legs anymore. And I would also have limited movement in my arms if I were to survive the accident. This is when I had the out of body experience, and I can actually hear the doctors talking to my parents about this, and I couldn't accept that diagnosis. In my mind, I thought to myself, there is no way that I am not gonna be able to walk or move or skateboard. Like I have to be able to skateboard. Like that's my passion. I need to do that. So I remember, just praying, and every time I'd wake up, I would give everything that I had to move my body. And the first thing that I moved when I started to recover was my two fingers, and I still got a pretty bad shake in my hand, from some residual nerve damage. But when I was able to move those two fingers, I knew that I was going to be able to move the rest of my body. It was just going to take a lot of work. Um, Several months later, I was able to walk out of that hospital, and it was nothing short of a miracle, man. I mean, it was really amazing. So that was kind of the first big failure in my life of getting to that point where I nearly had a death event and recovered from that and had to change my mindset. Now, before I go forward, did you have any questions about kind of the early childhood you wanted me to kind of focus in more on? Did you want me to keep going?
No, man, I'm loving it. And I haven't heard any of this stuff except for the part where you broke your back. And I know one other part. So I'm surprised that there's more to the story, which is, uh, and I love hearing that your dad, man, recognized that you had an ability to sell and helped set you up and said, here, let's sell this instead, and kind of encouraged that and through a positive way. I think
Yeah,
that's super cool because I hadn't
yeah, no,
heard you
I
say
really,
that before.
really grateful. I'm really grateful for my parents. Um, even though my parents were really young, man, they were young teenagers when they had me. I'm very fortunate that my dad did what he needed to do because he had gone through. He was a part of a motorcycle gang when he was younger. He was
Uh-huh.
an alcoholic drug addict. He was a gang leader actually, and he wreaked a lot of chaos in his life. When I came into the world, they actually wanted to abort me, man. My mom's mom and my dad's mom, they didn't want me in the picture. They had tried to force my mom to an abortion clinic. My dad actually stepped up, took her, and that's why they were essentially homeless because nobody in the family wanted to help them because I was coming. But my arrival on the scene really helped my dad and my parents to change their lives, change their mindsets, and try the best that they could with the skills that they had. Right? I mean, obviously, I still went through a lot of adversity in my life that they didn't know about. That it was really out of control, out of their control. And I like to, when I tell this story, I like to tell that my parents had no involvement in it. They really didn't know what was going on when I was being abused and going through all this different adversity. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from the responsibility that, they were parents and they should have been more watchful. But when these things would happen, my parents, especially my dad, would guide me in the right direction. And so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, so after this accident, after I recovered, the first thing I wanted to do, man, was just get on my skateboard. That's all I ever thought about was my skateboard. From the moment I started skateboarding, that skateboard became my identity, and I needed it. It was something that I needed. It felt like if I didn't have my skateboard, I would literally sleep with it. Let's just like young boys and girls sleep with a like a teddy bear. I know this might sound really weird, but I actually used to sleep with my skateboard, and I used to hug it and use it as a pillow because my life was so chaotic that that was the one thing that I could hang on to, and it became my identity. And I wouldn't walk anywhere. Anywhere that I would go, I would be on my skateboard. Very rarely I would walk. So it just became an extension of who I was. And after I recovered, I actually got a little bit more bold because in my mind, I thought to myself, if I can survive and go through an accident like that, then I can do anything. And so I started to be more brave on my skateboard. I remember traveling the first time I ever got to travel. Went to Denver, Colorado, and went downtown on 16th Street. And I saw these professional skateboarders at the time, which I know now personally. These pro skaters, they were jumping and grinding down this handrail downtown Denver. It was like an 8-star handrail. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I was just completely blown away with what these guys were doing on a skateboard. And because I was just doing like the basics, ollie, kickflip, whatever. I didn't really know any tricks. So these guys were telling me you could do this, and I'm like, heck yeah, I want to try it. So I jumped down the handrail and broke my arm. I jumped down a handrail, broke my arm, and but before I went to the hospital, I actually tried the trick several times and ended up landing it because I was determined. I'm like, I need to land this to prove to myself. They're like, dude, your arm is broken, like you're bleeding. I'm like, I don't care. I've been through worse. I want to just prove to myself that I can do this. So I ended up landing the trick and recovered from my arm, and that set me off into street skateboarding, which I literally did every day for 2 years. And long story short, I happened to be at the right place at the right time in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where they were having a professional skateboard competition there, where they had all these companies from across America, DC Shoes, Coca-Cola, Hershey Chocolate, all these big vendors, Spitfire Wheels. It was kind of like a fair. They had all their vendor booths on the street with their tents and everything, and they were
Yep.
promoting, selling products while this competition was going on. And I showed up there to this park. I used to hitchhike. I used to hitchhike an hour just to get to this park. And so they had it all taped off, and I couldn't skate in the park, and I was upset because I wasn't going to be able to skate that day. I didn't have the money to enter the contest. It was like $100 entry fee to enter the contest. Well, the one of the owners of the skate shop nearby, he'd see me come in from time to time. I would window shop. I really could never afford anything at that point in time because I wasn't doing sales or anything like that during that time. I was just focusing on school and skateboarding. Um, and I had stopped selling drugs for a couple of years. After my accident, I had stopped my involvement with gangs and gang activity and drugs from 12 until I would say I was about 17 years old. So that's a 5-year kind of span where I was trying to be a good kid. I was trying to do good in school. I was trying to honor my parents, and I was just trying to be good, on a skateboard and just have a positive outlet, I guess you could say. Well, the I ended up joining the contest and I won first place in the professional division. And that changed my life. I went from basically having very little money to making a ton of money skateboarding, getting to travel all over the country, and getting to meet some of the most famous skaters in the world, like Tony Hawk. Um, um, you know, that's probably the one that most people know is Tony Hawk, but a lot of other professional skateboarders that I've been able to become really good friends with and brothers.
Yeah. And
When I
dude,
was 17 years old. My Go ahead.
I did want to say,
You there?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, there's something going on with my internet, I feel like, but we'll see. We'll fix it. Uh, but I'm getting you
No
crystal
worries.
clear, which is good. And this is great. I love listening to it. But I do want to say, I remember correctly, uh, if I remember correctly, when you won that competition, you didn't realize that you were skating in the pro level, correct?
No, what now? I didn't. You kind of broke up there.
When you did the competition, you didn't realize that you were skating at the pro level. Was that correct? Like you had no idea?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I had no idea. I had no idea that I was going to be entered in the professional division. Nor did I care. I honestly didn't even care if I won the contest. I just wanted to have fun. You know, I needed to have my daily dose of skating, and I was upset because I wasn't going to be able to skate. So when they put me in the contest, I remember waiting. They had the beginner division come out, they had the intermediate, the advanced, and I'm like, man, these guys fooled me. I'm not going to be able to skate. And then the professionals came out, and I see all these famous skateboarders come out of this van, and they call my name out there, and I just, you know, was excited because finally there was some skaters that can skate on my level. So I didn't have any intention on winning the contest, to be honest with you. I asked the skate shop owner, what should I do? He says, just do what you do, have fun. And I went out there and did a couple of lines, and I didn't fall one time, and did this best trick contest, and yeah, I ended up winning first place overall, man, which was incredible. And it was funny because when they were announcing the winners, I didn't even think that I had a chance at winning. So I was actually starting to skate away because I was like, you know what, I had my skate session today. I'm not going to win. I started skating away. They announced the third and second place winners, and then when they announced my name, I was really, really shocked, and you know, was just rushing by all these people that I didn't even know, and I was very like I said, I've always been very happy-go-lucky, but I've always, in the past, I was a shy, very, very shy person. I think that was because of just the abuse that I went through. I really didn't want anybody to get too close to me, to get to know me. I can, you know, sell you a product really, really well, or an idea, but as far as somebody getting close to me or know me, I was kind of hesitant with that. So all these people were rushing me, dude, and all of a sudden I found myself just being bombarded with just stacks of clothes and skateboards. I ended up getting $1,000 worth of free product, and I got $1,000 cash. And dude, literally at this time, I had holes in my shirt, my pants, the sole of my shoes were coming off. I was not in a position of wealth at all, but I got flung into this lifestyle where now I'm hanging out with these, you know, elite skaters making, you know, tons of money just for a couple of hours of skating as I was traveling. Only problem is when you put a teenager that really doesn't have any boundaries in that
Yeah.
kind of situation, you're going to get into a situation. And so eventually I started getting back into drinking. I started getting back into drugs. I started to be influenced on you know, street skater level. Vert's a little bit different, but street skaters, you know, they get a bad rap. A lot of them are involved in drugs and things like that. So I started getting involved in those things again, starting to take you know, different things to supplement to boost my performance. You know, I was getting injured, so I was trying to skate through injuries. I would get concussions, you know, quite frequently, and so I needed something to take away the brain fog and all this kind of stuff. So I started, you know, doing drugs again, speed, you know, coke, other things to get my clarity of mind where I needed to be to perform. You know, and then obviously wanted to make even more money, so I started selling it and getting back into kind of the dark, you know, dark market, you know, organized crime again during that time. At that time, around 17 years old, um, 16, 17 years old, I did get into a little bit of trouble and had to go to a reformation school for 2 years, where they basically just put you in a 4x8 cell, and all that you're entitled to is you have a Bible, a holy Bible, and your educational book. You're not allowed to speak. All you could do is read the Bible and then do your education. So I was just locked in there. So I had to just learn. So I became very, very passionate about learning, and did that for 2 years. When I turned 17, I got out and went back into the public school system. And right when I got into the public school system, I had to earn, I had to redo high school all over again because the Reformation school that I went to wasn't accredited. And so I got into high school with freshman credits. So I had to take literally 13 classes a day in my senior year of high school just to be able to graduate. And everybody told me that I wasn't going to make it. They're like, no, dude, like you're already a screw up. Like you've already messed up your life. Like you're dealing in, you know, you're dealing drugs. Like you know, you're kind of like a washed up skater at this point, you know, because I had kind of not ruined my reputation, but I went crazy, you know. I just was in a situation where I didn't have the structure that I needed, you know. And
Yeah.
so I I ended up so during this time there was an event where my younger sister, was tragically killed in an accident. And it was a very, very sudden thing. When that happened, my whole family fell apart. My mom and dad ended up getting a divorce. My brother, he went into a state of psychosis that he ended up being in and out of for 23 years. And actually, just this year, he was freed from that. So, which is a blessing in itself. And by the way, I'm not sure kind of what your beliefs are, but I want to respect you, but I and your audience, but I do want to express that I'm not a religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. So you're going to hear me referencing God. You're going to hear me referencing Jesus a lot because I've had a personal encounter. And so I just wanted to kind of disclaim that, with you right now. But because
Absolutely.
this part of my life was a very pinnacle in my life. And are you okay with that? Just
Oh
me
yeah.
being raw?
Yep. Oh yeah. Please do.
Oh, looks like we went out there. You good? Okay. Looks like we're good. All right.
Yep.
So, so yeah. So, anyways, when I was 17, my sister passed away suddenly in an accident, kind of threw a grenade and everything. And my brother went into psychosis. My parents got a divorce. My dad kicked me out of the house at 17. So I was homeless again. I was homeless at 17. I had nowhere to go. So I actually started to sleep at the skate park. And again, I was sleeping with my skateboard as my pillow, skating every day. I ended up getting sponsored again, and started to. I had a job. I was working at a bank, and I was a teller at a bank, and I was very, very intelligent and functional. I became the manager of that bank by the time I was 21 years old. But at the same time, behind the scenes, I was selling drugs, involved in organized crime, doing all these things that were linked with my grandfather and the things that he was dealing with. And I was skating, so I had sponsors for skateboarding. I was dealing with drugs and organized crime, and I was doing a ton of drugs. I mean, any drug that you could think of, I was doing from age 17 to 21. And I was a functioning drug and alcoholic. Every night before I went to bed, I used to have to drink a fifth of Jose Cuervo just to be able to fall asleep. That's how much emotional pain that I was in. And I did have some teenagers that were working with me at the time, as gang members, I guess you could say, that would help me do these various things that I was doing, like selling drugs and whatnot. And I would set up these situations where we would distribute these drugs through fast food chain restaurants. And I had a whole network, a whole business network, basically doing this, right? And I had this mindset. I went into this victim-based, shame-based mindset that I had this dark worldview that because of the things that I had been through and because of the person that I had become, that I was meant to be a person that was supposed to act in darkness rather than in light. And this is kind of coming around to what you're doing now with light and me kind of starting to awaken with my story. um, like I said, I grew up in a very religious household, and a lot of strict, judgmental kind of things on everything that was done. So I really, really rejected that and turned away from that because of the things that I had gone through being abused, and I had this like really narcissistic um, mindset of where it's all about me. Nobody's coming to rescue me, and I need to be aggressive and mean. Otherwise, I'm going to get stomped on. So I became a very aggressive leader. That was beneficial to me because I was able to rise up in leadership in the corporate world. And unfortunately, well, now that's changing. But then you had to be kind of an asshole to really kind of get anywhere. At least where I was from. So I did that. Became a very influential person by the time I was 21 years old. I had competed in some professional competitions, like I competed in the X Games a couple of times. I never made it on television, but I did was able to compete on a professional level. I've been in magazines, been on videos and things for skateboarding, and things like that. Nobody knew what was going on behind the scenes with me. Well, when I was 21 years old, I ended up having a drug overdose, and it was actually it was this month in September. It was September 3rd of 2005. I actually suffered a major drug overdose, and I actually had another cardiac arrest event. And I talk about more of the details of that in another podcast that I was interviewing on. I can put that in your show notes if you want. But I had a death event, had another out of body experience, and this time though, what I will share is I had an experience with Jesus Christ. I met Jesus when I had this death experience, and I can honestly say that there is nothing or no one that can convince me that the experience that I had wasn't real. And the way that I could define it is it was divine light. And in that moment, when I had this out of body experience, I was in the darkness, and I cried out to God, and this light, bright light, shone in front of me, and this hand literally grabbed me and pulled me out of this dark place that I was in, and I started breathing again and came back to life. And from that point on, was a changed person, completely different, sober. Just became sober overnight. I was all of a sudden realized that everything that I had done and had accumulated through the wealth from skateboarding, through selling drugs, through working in corporate America, all those things were garbage. They didn't mean anything to me, because of the way that my mindset was and how I was in this state of being. So I knew that I needed to change. So I surrendered my life to Jesus, and I started a mission to change and to do right. I ended up leaving New Mexico, went to Southern California, and I got plugged back into. I got reconnected with family because I had disconnected with my mom and dad at this point. Reconnected with them, and started to get involved in the skateboard community in Southern California, which I became professional for a second time, in Southern California in 2006. And then a couple years later, ended up breaking my femur and ended up ending my skateboarding career. But that's enough. I know I spent quite a bit of time talking about that. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about my story, but I wanted to build that foundation to kind of paint a picture of the adversity that I went in my younger life. And one thing that I one thing that came out of that whole experience was that, I didn't grow up with much, but from a young age, I learned how important it was to serve people, because there was a lot of people that were serving me when I didn't deserve it, and whether that took selling candy as a kid, or, leading logistics operations as an adult. My story is one of setbacks, but also one of rebuilding and turning pain into purpose. And I'm shedding light on all these pain points because I want to show people that no matter what kind of a setback that you're going through, you can break through it and come out the other side much stronger. My pain wouldn't end there. When I got to San Diego and I got into skateboarding, I was making not enough money skateboarding to live off of. So I did get a college degree. I went to University of New Mexico and got a degree in business, because I knew that skateboarding wasn't going to be something that was going to last forever for me. Went to college, ended up having to drop out of college because I had that drug overdose. And but later on, as I moved to California, I used that. I didn't know a single soul in San Diego, and I started working as a receptionist, as a temp job, getting $11 an hour. And I remember seeing I was working at this financial firm called TD Waterhouse. It was before they merged with Ameritrade. I'm not sure if you're really familiar with finance, but now it's called TD Ameritrade. Anyways, this is before the Great Recession. I got involved in finance, and as a sales representative after being a receptionist for a short period of time. And I was still very aggressive. I had a kind of a big chip on my shoulders, big ego. And I remember I was sitting at the front desk taking calls and making appointments. And I was listening to these sales reps in the back making these phone calls. And I would think to myself, man, these guys really suck at selling. Like, they don't know how to sell anything. And so I would just get frustrated. Well, finally, after like a couple of months, I go to the manager, the branch manager, and I tell him they're closing up for the night. I'm helping them lock the doors, and I'm gonna say, hey, I gotta tell you, man, you got to get better salespeople. I said, the older guy, there's three of them. I said, the older guy, he's pretty good, but the two young guys that you have, they ain't worth anything. And I tell you, I said, you know what? I said, if you would give me a chance to sell, because they had one empty desk. I said, if you give
Uh-huh.
me a chance to sell for just 1 week and sell your product, I guarantee I will outsell both of those salespeople. And if I do that, give me a permanent spot as a salesperson. Well, I did what I said I was going to do. He gave me an opportunity, and within a week, I generated over $1 million in revenue for the company. And he just blew his mind. And he said, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Well, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to take a risk, you know." And he says, "Why are you not afraid to take risks?" And I said, "Because I'm a skateboarder. My whole life
Yeah.
been my whole life has been falling."
Hey, you. Yeah, you. I know you're thinking to yourself with all this talk about mental health and cognitive behavioral therapy. How can you do all this and achieve all this and better mental health, emotional health, and physical health? Well, one way that you can do it and without having to think about it is through lighting design because 50% of the brain space is dedicated to vision. So if you can design the lighting correctly in your space, your body's automatically going to feel better and more relaxed in the evening, in the morning, and more awake and alert and productive during the day because you're going to align your body's circadian rhythm, its internal clock, to what we've all developed to the sun. And in that time, you're going to feel your body change and develop and reset in a way that makes it feel good and you're leveraging light with your biology. And the best way to do this is hire a professional because a professional can layer in the lighting and design your commercial or residential space in a way that makes it feel good and you can do more, sleep better, and beautifies the space. So if I think about I want to go to a doctor and have knee surgery, I don't go to a general health doctor to perform the knee surgery. I go to a specific surgeon. That's the way line design is. Instead of having the electrical contractor do it, or and they do a generic layout, or having architect do it, you have a professional engineering lighting designer do it because they know how to eliminate things like glare and highlight the vertical spaces, how what fixture to use and optics to use to get the functional light into the space and how to highlight the details and make it align with your biology. And not every lighting designer knows how to do that or take it to that extent. At TK Lighting Design, we take it to that extent and we're setting the standard for layering in the light with accent, ambient task, controls, and it you use all that and you get a whole space that feels like health and wellness. Reach out to TK Lighting Design to get your space designed right the first time.
In skateboarding, it's 99% falling, 1% landing the trick. And so I was able to leverage my
Yeah.
skateboarding experience, right? And experience of having these setbacks of failing in life with drugs and alcohol and skateboarding, and mainly with skateboarding. Whenever I would do these tricks, some like the biggest set of stairs that I've done was 17 stairs. 17 stairs. It took me
Oh wow.
took me three major concussions and 23 tries of literally annihilating myself down this handrail to land this trick. Um, and I'll share a picture with you of me when I was doing a big demo in San Diego. But in the picture, you see me on top of this rail. If you look very closely, look at my clothes because my clothes are super dirty and oily from like the trillions of times that I fell just trying to land that one trick. But
Uh,
when you land that one trick, right? Not everybody, unless you're at a live skateboard demo, you're gonna see what goes into it. And it's funny because when you're at a demo, building up to a skateboard demo like that, you're expected to land your trick every time, right? And that's kind of like when you're in the business world. When you're in the business world, there's this like unset expectation that you're supposed to land these deals all the time, right? And you're supposed to get these big contracts all the time, right? But and at a certain point, you do get to that point where you're getting consistently and you're building your revenue and you're scaling very quickly and big, but nobody sees all of the fails that led up to that, right? And so I use skateboarding for that, and ended up, like I said, we ended up retiring because I got hurt. I got into entrepreneurship after that point because that was right around the time when the Great Recession happened. So I made good money working for that financial firm. I was a part of the acquisition team that acquired or did the merger between TD Waterhouse and Ameritrade, and made a little over $1 million doing that deal. And that propelled me into doing venture capitalism. So I got into investing into small businesses that are struggling to either grow their business. Say it's a one person shop that they're stuck at like three or $400,000 in revenue or lower, and they want to get into that $1 million price point. I would go in, evaluate how they were doing their business, and quite honestly, I don't really understand like how I was able to do this. I had just this intuition where I'm able to see the entire structure of their business and have kind of and be kind of like what they call a visionary entrepreneur, where I can see the different areas of their business that need to be improved, and if they just tweak a couple of different things, they can very quickly grow in revenue. And so I did that a couple of times, and ended up becoming a successful entrepreneur, having built three different businesses to over $1 million in revenue. And up until my current business, Remnant Logistics, we are a full stack, from vision to last mile delivery to tech stack in between logistics company that is set into place because of the life experience that I have. So I have that business now. And then the other business that I have with my fiance is called One Love Wellness. That's what you experienced in Idaho. And One Love Wellness is comprises of four pillars: a medical or physical wellness, which is having to do with medical ailments such as injuries, tension, anything like that. Mental emotional wellness. I have a certified cognitive behavior coach license certificate, and my fiance has a mental wellness certificate as well. So we help people who are stuck in who have experienced adversity as a child, abuse, who are stuck in addiction, and want to obtain the skills to move past that. We do that as well. And the last pillar is the financial pillar, which I have a program that literally helps people to go from, if they're really serious about building a business and becoming an entrepreneur, I have a program that helps them go from zero to $1 million in revenue in 36 months. So I know that I spit out a lot of information at you right there. I'll just kind of stop right there. If you want to go back and ask me any questions specifically on business or my story, we'll do that.
Sounds good. First off, I love your analogy to skateboarding and selling, where it was like I've fallen 99% of the time. I'm not afraid to fall because I've done it. I think that's great. And two, normally throughout a podcast, I got asked calibrated questions, and I'm listening to kind of get the guests to keep talking and sharing. Man, this is awesome. I've just been like wowed listening to your story. This is like the coolest, I think, story that I've ever heard. I didn't have to engage or try to get you to re-ask a question to get you to go somewhere else because it was just so entertaining and engaging. I've never heard anything like that, man. It's very, very unique and very, I know you've been through a lot of struggles, so I'm not saying that's cool, but just the way you face it and what you learn from it and take away from it, man, is awesome. I love hearing it. I feel like pumped up listening to you.
Thank you.
So yeah.
And
I,
to kind of transition into, because I know that your podcast is about light, right? And what you're doing in that space. To me, that played a key role in my life. I didn't realize that, when I went into therapy, because honestly, dude, I'm going to tell you, you know what? It wasn't cool, the things that I had to go through. I can tell you stories that would give people nightmares. And even when I do tell my story, and I have told my story publicly, I decided to go public with my childhood story, in pretty intricate detail of some of the things that I went through, which I won't share here. But it wasn't cool that I went through that. And when I did go through that, I was stuck, literally stuck for years in a victim-based, shame-based mindset. And
Mhm.
it actually cost me my first marriage. When I was 21, I got married. Actually, I was 22 when I got married. And uh, I was in a place where I shouldn't have been in a relationship. I thought it was just another thing that I had to do to check a box off of, just the progression of life, grow up, go to college, get a wife, have kids, end up having two kids with this person. But while I was with this person, I was very much I was a successful entrepreneur. That's the thing, is a lot of, and I know that there's a lot more people out there that have been through very similar experiences I have. It's just that they're afraid to talk about it because of the stigma of mental wellness. Okay. When I decided to, I had really had no choice. I kind of had a third event, which was like a kind of like a final awakening for me to recognize that I really needed to get help. And this is where light therapy came in. And which is why I think it's so important with what you're doing in your business. And I kind of want to segue towards that. So when I got into recovery, it was, I want to say, around 2010 was the time frame that I got into recovery. 2010 to, actually, it was 2012. 2010 is when I started to experience severe PTSD from my adverse childhood. So at age 21, you know, was in San Diego, California, got into skateboarding, became professional, was making money, got into corporate America, left corporate America to had to be an entrepreneur because I got sick and tired of the just corrupt leadership at the upper echelons of corporate America. Every time I tried to get an advancement or a promotion in a job for giving my best at the job, and people would see that, I would give my all and I would generate revenue very, very quickly. And there was a lot of people that took advantage of that. And so I decided, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to be my own boss, just like I was when I was a kid. Okay. Um, and that was freeing for me because I had a lot of freedom, but I'd never dealt with, so I had dealt with the financial aspect of my life. I went from being extremely homeless to wealthy. So that's, you know, a big swing on the pendulum. And then I went from being um, unhealthy to being more healthy and eating right and having a better diet and things like that. But I never dealt with the internal pain. And when I got into recovery in 2012, I had so much emotional mental trauma that I really couldn't function anymore. I suffered a minor stroke because of the tension and the pain that I was going through internally, and obviously too from some of the physical things that I had done in my body. All kind of caught up to me at once, and I was forced to face the reality that I needed help. So I went into a treatment called EMDR, and that's light therapy. And you and I have talked about this a little bit. It could be a little intense, and it was for me, but it definitely unlocked the the uh, the memories that I needed to go back in time, if you will, and relive those experiences in a safe environment to get myself out of, like, I was victimized or that I'm a victim and that I'm not good, to, hey, you know what? There's some bad things that happened to me, but that doesn't mean that I am not lovable, that I'm not safe, that I don't have value, and that I can be okay, just me as a person, right? And so I started to do more and more of that treatment, and it got me passionate to actually become certified in doing EMDR, and then also going into cognitive therapy and helping people in that as well. So currently, right now, I am an entrepreneur. I have two very successful businesses right now, but then incorporated into into our One Love Wellness program, I tie in my expertise in cognitive behavioral therapy, neurolinguistic reprogramming, and light therapy, which I want to talk to you about, because with all the corporations that I work with, as we talked about, the lighting in there sucks. You have this LED light, even like this, circle light that I'm using, for my camera setup right now, probably isn't good for my vision. But so that's kind of where things are going with me, and with light specifically. I wanted to tell you, um, I was one of the first. I was one of the first tech entrepreneurs to start having corporations experiment with light technology, and light technology in the form of fiber optics. Are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar with fiber optics, right?
Yep, yep.
So back in 2008, when the Great Recession happened, everybody was losing their money. I pulled out before that, so I didn't lose any of that money. But I pulled out before the Great Recession, and there was a buddy of mine that I had met at church, that his friend was trying to start a technology company developing high-powered supercomputers with literally like petabytes of data storage behind these systems, but they needed a way to be able to get the data to transfer at a very fast rate, uncorrupted. So at the time, fiber optics were just, basically an experimental technology. We ended up manufacturing this unit that we got certified with the United States government, and we ended up getting a contract with the U.S. Navy and with NASA. And so for about 10 years, we worked with NASA, on their Mars rover project and the Discovery mission. And that's what launched me into the area of success in the entrepreneurial realm down in Southern California, and was able to help a ton of businesses. I would just be in these situations where I would either be at a networking event or like a gala or some kind of a trade show where I would walk around, talk to businesses, give them little insights of things that they could do to scale their businesses or resources for things that they need. And I ended up catching the attention of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for the city of San Diego, and they nominated me as president. And I was elected as president, and I served 2 years as the president for the North County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce down there. And again, my mission really was to just to help people, help people with grow their businesses, because that's what they wanted to do for their families. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my journey in that way. But I wanted to kind of point that out because I know what you're doing with light is on the inside of the building. What I was doing is in the servers, but I think it's a unique offering that you have because I'm really on a mission right now to educate people on mental wellness and emotional wellness, more importantly. And it's really cool to see that topic finally start to hit the mainstream and be like a big thing that a lot of people are talking about. Back then, if you talked about mental wellness, you would instantly kind of get canceled or pushed away because it'd be like, no, if you talk about mental wellness, you're weak. And so we
Yeah,
don't have those type of people working with us, right? And so now
totally.
it's mainstream, and people are like trying to jump on this bandwagon, which I'm glad, because it just promotes the movement on making this more awareness of like, hey, there are so many things that are tied into mental wellness that we need to pay attention to. Okay, that this conversation can no longer be ignored. And so I want to be the front runner of that conversation. And I am, with a lot of big corporations. And that's what I want to bring you into, because I think with what you're going on, and I want you to talk about I want to hear more about what you're doing with your light business and more a commercial setting, because I think that plays a key role into people having an overall mental well-being in their workplace, which people spend the majority of their time in. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So if you think about it, if you look it up on Google, um, or any actual legitimate research book, I know listeners can't hear right now, but I got this whole big engineering book sitting right next to me let's see if you can see it. Oh, my thing's kind of blocking it out, but it's really big.
Yeah.
Normally, it's like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I
there you
see
go.
it.
You can kind of see big encyclopedia of lighting design. And 50% of our brain space is dedicated to vision. And so if you think it doesn't matter what kind of lighting you put up, oh, it 100% does. And you're going to get headaches if you have things like unwanted effects like glare, or you don't have some type of light shield protecting that, or optics that are regressed up in. And glare is not an issue if it's like mounted up high, because where you get glare is when the light source itself is in your peripherals, in your peripheral vision. And this is the main thing. I don't know if you ever listened to the Huberman Lab podcast, but he's a neurobiologist and ophthalmologist. He talks greatly about the eyes, how they've been developed since birth as an extension of our brain to interact within the world. And the way that we interact is through photons. So, yeah, I'm a big advocate for getting lighting right, and not just in design, but there's lots of studies that show the CCT that you have affects our body to release certain hormones for levels of alertness, and it promotes levels of uh, sleep. Because you think about it, the last 300,000 years, we've evolved to the rising and setting of the sun. When that sun is just starting to rise up, that's starting to tell our body to start release low levels of adrenaline. And it's time to be awake and alert. And then when it's up at its highest point, that's when we're getting more of those chemicals that make us focus. And they've done these studies at schools where they have tunable white LED lights, and it adjusts throughout the day, and the kids actually like test better, they do better at school, and feel more relaxed in the afternoon. So then the same scenario when the sun sets is that your body starts to produce melatonin. It's all linked to light and what time that we're getting that light into our eyes. And it sets our SCN, our suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is the brain's internal clock for our circadian rhythm when it's time to be asleep and go awake. So, and there's a lot of people that just aren't aware of it because the electric light bulb has only been invented the last 150 years, and it has advanced tremendously since then. So
Hmm.
people are just putting lights everywhere and not really aware that how you lay it out, how you design it, and the time of day that you get certain amounts of light actually really affect our bodies greatly and our brain. Because it's easy to be stressed out and angry when you're not feeling good. You
Hmm.
know, if you can line that light up to leverage it to line up with your biology, it really helps out a lot with your productivity and levels of alertness and your sleep and wakefulness too. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. I definitely want, so are you working with tell me who is kind of some of the people that you're working with. What is your methodology as far as like business? Who's your target audience, and like what is your overall mission with
So
what you're
right now, what pays the bills that I do is I do like design, charge per square foot for design for end users, architects, custom integrators, contractors who are building like a big custom home, or they're building um, like a or a commercial space and they want to look really nice and they want to show off like their marketing material that they're selling or their business sign or anything, or they want to maybe it's the space is being used for surgery, so it has multiple different uses in there, and there's different amounts of light that you need. So you really need a light engineering for that, and that's a lot of work. It's a lot different than just doing a generic layout. So we charge per square foot, and that's how we make our money doing that. And then what I really want to do is I want that to pay the bills, and I've been putting together courses that are very affordable and putting them online so people can teach themselves and learn what we're doing because nobody's doing what we're doing. They do like other light designers do photometrics. We use like three different programs. We use Unreal Engine for visualization. We do SketchUp for drafting. We draft our own drawings. And then we use a photometric tool to tell us the numbers and see if it's actually going to do all that, everything that the visualization says it's going to do. And a lot of architects don't really uh, use photometrics, one, and then a lot of other lighting designers don't do the visualizations that we do to show people what it can look like. So I'm putting together courses to show people what we're doing and how they can do it themselves. And it would be really cool because I think people can learn just with a little bit of effort. So that would be more targeted for like the high end people who want to learn actual design. And then there's also going to be some courses for people who want to just better their environment, maybe local municipalities, because we also need dark. We can't just have light all the time. And if there's been so much light pollution too, so it's nice to teach people to they have controls now where you can put it on an occupancy sensor, not just a photocell that keeps it on all night, but something that turns it on at night and then maybe it dims down to 10%. So you're not, when no one's around, so you're not getting this big sky glow.
Mhm.
And you can't see the stars or keeping you up at night because you think about, we're not the only ones that live on this planet too. Animals have evolved to the light too, and they get all this light pollution. I remember I was out camping the other day, last year, I think it was, and we were the only ones at this campsite and it was pitch black, but we couldn't sleep because there was just one barnyard light that was out and it was shining in. It was so bright because light is relative. So, meaning that even though it's just 175-watt mercury vapor, one of those green ones, since it was so dark outside and everywhere else, it was really bright inside our camper. And yeah, you can't even get to sleep. The kids couldn't sleep. And so I just think about just educating because people have the capacity to learn and the willingness to learn
Mhm.
and apply it. I think they're capable of designing their space so it looks great and also helping out so they're not just contributing to light pollution as well and the unwanted effect at night. So
That's amazing. That's really amazing, man. So you're looking to educate the general public, but then also
yeah,
go up all the way up into right municipalities on in my what I'm looking at is you have a movement, you know what I mean? Like you have a movement um in front of you. Now is this your own thing? Like is this your business?
DK lighting design and earth centric lighting is my business. And as far as like the concepts behind it, I haven't heard of too many other lighting designers talking about like big thing with lighting design is layers of light, right? There's ambient light, that's the light that fills the space. Task light, that's for doing certain tasks in certain areas, like you want more light there. And then there's accent for like creating feeling. And I've started to add there's two other layers that people don't think about. That's the other layer that you need is controls. Because if you have layers of light, you want to press it at a button so you can adjust the way the whole entire space feels and looks. And you want it to adjust throughout the day so you don't have those bright overhead lights waking you up at night. And then maybe you just have some guide lights on that are mounted low so it's not waking your body up. And your body really needs like 2 hours of sleep or 2 hours of dark, I mean, to get ready for sleep. It's not like, oh, let's just flip a switch and go to sleep. It takes time to prep up for that. And light is a huge key component in that. Um, and then the fifth layer, there's for the fifth layer is when you combine all those, it's health and wellness because it really, if you get a space that feels really good and aligns with your body's biology, uh, it's going to improve and increase your mental, emotional, and physical health because I know, like you said, it's all connected. You know, it's not just about the brain, it's not just about the body, uh, or maybe the inner light or the soul or spirit, however you want to call it. It's kind of all this stuff together. I know what you're thinking listening to all this. How can I design the lighting or pay for a lighting designer in my space when I have a small apartment or I have a small house and I want to do my own remodel, or maybe you're a do-it-yourselfer, or maybe you're a professional wanting to learn more. Well, we have an answer. We just came out with our first design course for kitchen lighting design where we're going to take 15 years, 20 years of knowledge and compact it all into one course. And it's available to purchase on our website at www.tklightingdesign.com. It's for kitchen lighting design. There will be more courses to come to watch out for. So head on over there and check it out. Now back to the show.
Mhm.
Working and then yeah, I think it's my approach is kind of I guess is what I say when you ask, is this my business? It is my business, but my approach, I haven't heard too many other lighting designers going after it this way because I feel like it is something that if people are aware of it, it could positively influence their lives greatly if it's applied and done right and they have some type of knowledge behind it. Because that big book I shared, there's a lot of detail and analytical knowledge about understanding light and optics and uh, how it works, but I want to condense all that knowledge and everything I've done in the 20 years doing it into short courses so people can get a basic understanding and make their understand when they get those box store lights where there's no light shield that it's not even getting light into the space or down to the ground and it's giving them glare and headaches versus picking out something that has an optic regressed up in and it's putting like 5 times more light into the space and you're not getting glare. So you can see to do things a lot better and easier without straining your eyes and straining your mind. And then you don't have the headache effect of the glare too. And there's a lot more I could go into with all that, but it's just kind of a good one of the best examples I can think of.
That's
So
awesome. That's an
yeah,
amazing example, and I think that well, and I was going to ask you, so you've been doing this for 20 years, okay? So
yep,
how did you get into this? Like, how did you get into light?
yeah. I well, that's funny too because uh, I started off working in the field and was always extreme, loved extreme sports myself, but I broke my wrist snowboarding when I was 14, and it was the scaphoid. It's this little uh, bone that's only gets blood flow to one side, and it's like the only bone in the body that doesn't have blood vessels on both sides of it. So they're still learning about when they did the X-ray. They said, "Oh yeah, it's healed after I had been in the cast," and really the side that didn't get uh, blood flow turned into mush. It was just this. Uh, so I was out there lifting weights, getting ready for football, and doing all this stuff, and uh, still it just hurt like crazy. But it took them 5 years to finally heal it up. And what they did is they took a piece of my radius with a blood vessel attached to it and put it on top of that mush part and screwed it all together after 5 years of trying to figure it out and in and out of cast and stuff like that. It was super
Wow.
frustrating, but yeah, it was kind of cool. But so I was working in the field installing because my dad's an electrical contractor, and with the wrist, I couldn't hardly turn a wrench or grab anything. It was just losing all my strength. So I got working in an office as a rep for a rep agency, JC Wright, and they rep agencies sell like 80 or 100 different lines that they rep. And then I realized there that there was like the client wasn't really getting what they wanted. They were getting pushed certain product onto them. And then I switched and worked for electrical distribution. And there it was like almost the opposite. Like the contractor was given the cheapest thing, not the best thing. So I'm like, I want to start a consultant business where someone's looking out for the client and the end user for their best interest for their space to look amazing and feel great. Because there's a lot of stuff here that's getting overlooked, and people want good design. They want healthy environments. But they just don't know how to have that conversation or how to ask that. So that's why being a consultant, having someone to watch out for the end user, an architect is something I wanted to do. And yeah, so far. But the business side of things, it's always hard to figure that out because I've always been more of a creative. But I feel like lighting design that works good because it's both a science and an art. Anyways, you got to be very analytical and kind of creative too to make those work together. So it seems like always come in pairs. But yeah, that's how I.
So as far as the business side, so it sounds like this is just something from an early young age that has just been a passion of yours, right? That has developed into what you were doing now.
I would say I've always been a creative. Like I've always loved music and
Uh,
stuff like that. Like I did music. And once I didn't do that, somehow I leaned into design. Um, but I've always been like you say, the strong masculine man that would shut it down and then for the longest time and then but there is an inside spark that's kind of creative and more uh uh likes to do different things because I've always been a hunter and like to wakeboard and do really hard things. But then when I had my little girls, man, it's like the freaking like the hard stuff still needs to be there to be their protector, but there also needs to be a soft, big spot that's very compassionate and able to listen and discipline when I need to discipline. And it's very, very challenging. And but yeah, so yeah, it's pretty cool so
so
far.
what
But I do like the creative side of it.
you're experiencing right now, and what are some of the challenge? So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your journey getting up to this point as an entrepreneur?
I would say it's education. It's like educating people that there is a difference and showing them. Um, and then because me, I was always very shy as well and shut down. And when I started my business, I started doing a lot of learning on how to speak and how to talk and how to listen and label and all these things about carrying on an actual conversation. And it almost got in the way, to be honest with you. It got too analytical and finally learning just to let something unfold pretty naturally or just, be myself and let the other person talk and be themselves and get curious and stuff. That stuff helps out a lot, I think, instead. but that's the biggest challenge because even being social, had such a hard time being social in school and things like that. So building an own business where you gotta go sell yourself, represent yourself because no one else is gonna do it for you. So you gotta be the one to do it. I'd say that has been the hardest part, but it's also kind of the one I enjoy the most now because I used to enjoy doing just design only. Now, if I can, I want to hire out the design and show people what we're doing and then do the selling part and talk about it because I enjoy it. It's pretty fun,
That's all.
honestly.
You're
Yeah.
getting into a place of delegation. So are you just a one person team at this point as far as like the business, or do you have other
Yep.
people
Yep.
working?
I had three people, uh, but it wasn't working out, man. I thought that they would turn around like at least one of them would turn one project in a month. And yeah, they just couldn't do it. And uh, but I got one person that I'm gonna sub out some work to here, which will help out nice. But yeah, right now it's a one man show, but it would be nice to build it up and make it so that way we can service multiple people and multiple projects at the same time instead of just the one a month
Right.
uh, uh, way that it is now. But um, yeah, that's kind of the way it is. It's just one person right now, and then looking to grow it here in the future, and
Gotcha.
then do the education courses to help out with other people teaching themselves.
Well, I would love to when you're done building those courses. If you need help with any of this, also by the way, scaling is my expertise. You know, of all the main things that I've learned in my entrepreneurial journey, the biggest thing that I've learned, the mistake to not make, and I've made this mistake over and over again. And honestly, this well, I want to call it a mistake. It's a more of a learning lesson, right? For me, I built a multi-million-dollar logistics business, shipping and supply chain business, essentially myself. I bought a small business in 2008. No, 2017. I bought a small business when I moved to the Oregon coast, and was only valued at $30,000 a year for that initial delivery contract. And in a span of like 4 years, 4 or 5 years, I built it into a multi-million-dollar corporation, and I was basically running it myself. Was working pretty much nonstop. I was getting, maybe 3 hours a week, maybe 3 hours of sleep a night, maybe, and was just running myself literally into the ground, dude. And in 2023, I ended up suffering probably one of the biggest losses that I've had in business, and that was because I failed to delegate. So of all the lessons that I've learned, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, as much as like, we've talked about what we've done the last 20 years, and you're very passionate about what you do, you can hear it, you can see it, you're passionate about the education. You of course you have to develop these courses. That's something, people want to see you, hear you, feel that passion that you have going on. But when you start getting to the business side of it and scaling, man, it is so important to delegate those tasks off. And it's funny because my fiance and I were actually just celebrating last night. We got home to Vegas after being in Arizona for a couple of days, and we're going to be on the road again in a few days. But as we're just traveling, or we made it a kind of a ritual that when we come back into town, we just celebrate the victories that we had from the weekend before, and we'll go out to like a nice restaurant. But we were celebrating last night because I was able to cut the first paycheck to an executive assistant that I hired. And I've had these kind of people in my organizations before. I've had up to 20 people in my organizations, but I was super like wanting to do things myself still. I wanted to oversee everything. I wanted to make sure that everything was done properly because, at the end of the day, especially if it's your business, like your name is on that business. And if my name is on that business, I have a motto. My motto, if you looked at my LinkedIn, is get it done, do it right. Like that's literally my motto. Get it done, do it right. And not to be cocky or braggadocious, but the only person that I know that can do what I need to do right is myself, right? But I have to again change my mindset and learn how to trust people. Well, how do I learn how to trust people? Well, number one, I have to be willing to take that risk, and number two, I have to be willing to educate people. And that's the biggest thing that I like about you, and I really know that you're going to be successful. I'd love to help you in any way that I can with the connections that I have. Um, and like we had talked about, doing some collaborative work together. I would love to do that, not only on the corporate space, but also what we're doing with our clients that are going through our mental recovery program. Because a part of that is I want, there's you have your traditional therapy, right? Where you go into a room, you have a psychologist, you'll sit down in a reclining chair, they'll take notes, they ask you how you're feeling, right? They go through all the symptoms, and then most of them will prescribe you a pill, right? Well, what we do at One Love Wellness is we have a holistic approach to emotional and mental wellness, healing and recovery, that I want to be completely different from everybody else. And that is through not selling a pill or product, but through education, and education to what tools are available out there for them to be able to heal themselves. If we get them into an environment where the lighting is optimal for their mental well-being, right? If we get them to a position where they have the tools to, not only because of the lighting, be able to think clearly, have more mental alertness, energy, all those different things, then they're going to be more capable, and more open to learning the cognitive and neuroscientific skills that they need to rewrite the neurons in their brain, which neural pathways are pathways of light. These are light pathways that are formed, like optical pathways in our mind, that are formed from our hippocampus, the hard drive of our brain, to either the trauma center, the amygdala of our brain, or to the prefrontal cortex, which helps with critical thinking. And if you have the wrong lighting, the wrong messaging, the wrong tools, you're not going to get anywhere. You're stuck. So that's kind of where I would like to work with you on, and continue the conversation. I've really enjoyed this conversation so far. I've got another appointment here in a few minutes, so we probably have to come on again. I would love to come on again and talk with you more. But I wanted to ask you, do you have any questions, business questions for me, or anything else you wanted me to talk about before we end our session today? And also, too, would you be willing to come on my show and talk a little bit about your personal experience? Oh, I think you muted. I think you got muted.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yes, absolutely. I would be more than happy to come on your show and talk to. And yes, I know we've talked about you and me working together, and I think that's a great idea. A fantastic. I would love that because I can tell you're a really good guy and you really care about people and you've been through a lot, so you know what its pain feels like. So it's not a stranger to you, and so I feel like that's made you even more compassionate and strong and in ways that people don't even know. So I'm just really, really grateful for this interview, for you coming on here too. And what I would like to ask is uh, maybe because the first time I did your device, something in my back relaxed so much. I think we're laughing that I felt it in my brain, like kind of up my back, and then I was like, out my ear was coming out a bunch of wax, like because
Mm-hmm.
obviously our body holds on to all this stuff, right? And I think that's, do you sell those things online? Because I think it's great that people do acupuncture, but this is a device that you can take home with you and put on your body kind of wherever,
For sure.
right? And do your
Yeah,
own personal acupuncture at home, which I thought was super cool. And people listening to this might really love to find out where to get that or how they
absolutely.
can do that. Yeah.
For bringing that up, and thank you for allowing me to be able to present that to your audience. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
yeah, so One Love Wellness, like I said again, we have four pillars. The first one being physical wellness, and a lot of people hold on to their pain, or they'll suppress the pain either through just straight out suppression, dealing with it, or they'll think like a pain pill like a Tylenol, or something that's subscribed to them, is going to fix their problem. But all the evidence, and this is, I actually challenge doctors on this, because doctors will prescribe, that's the first thing they'll do, is they'll prescribe a pain pill. Oh, go take a benzo, or go, whatever. And look at the state of our world right now. The state of our, even in America, there's such a huge opioid addiction. Why is there such a huge opioid addiction? It's because people are experiencing pain.
Hmm.
And there's not enough education in our world today on people, on how to resolve pain or how to resolve disease. Okay. Now, when you are in physical pain, it's often because you're misaligned. right?
Mhm.
Okay. If you have some kind of an internal issue going on, and you have a dis-ease, it's because your body is out of ease. You're at dis-ease. Okay. A lot of people don't know that. Okay. So they will go through life, because they've been indoctrinated or brainwashed, if you will, that they're just supposed to blindly trust the medical mainstream doctors and just go in for a pain pill procedure, or physical therapy treatment for just a couple of weeks. That's not going to do anything. Well, the physical devices that we sell, it's a wireless device, and it's not a TENS unit. A lot of people think that it is. It's one of my frustrations when we go to these fairs and people are skeptical about it. I think it's a TENS unit. Now, if you haven't had a TENS unit before, TENS unit is something that chiropractors will use. It's a vibrational frequency that vibrates on the top of your skin very, very quickly. And the whole purpose of it is just external, surface of the skin. The word TENS stands for transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. So that stimulation just numbs the nerve, the top of the skin, blocking the pain receptors of the brain to make your brain think that there are no pain in that area. So it blocks off those light signals going down to the brain or down to the area of the body saying that there's no pain there. Only thing is, if you just use a TENS unit, it's only surface level, so it's not going to do anything for the internal side of your body. Now, the medical devices that we sell, we actually sell for a company called Hideout International, and they are a Class 2 FDA approved medical device, and we are a medical distributor, one of the bigger ones here in the United States, and very, very quickly going to be the number one distributor of these products. And it's a combination of 10% of that TENS frequency, because TENS by itself is a very invasive frequency. So if you just use that, doctors will recommend when they prescribe them, which I really don't think the doctors should even be prescribing them anymore. And we're having more and more conversations with doctors about this. But they'll prescribe a TENS unit and they'll say, don't use it more than 15 minutes. Well, people use it longer because they have pain and they want to get rid of that pain, but they don't realize that the TENS frequency by itself can actually damage their nerve. So our device is two frequencies. We have 10% TENS frequency and 90% electronic muscle stimulation. That's what they use in physical therapy. And that frequency is designed to go deep inside of the muscle tissue, like what happened with you when you were wearing that neck wrap. It goes deep into the muscle tissue, deep all the way through your body into your spine and even into the spinal column and spinal cord. And it's designed to break apart calcium and lactic acid deposits and other deposits that shouldn't be in the body, like what you were experiencing with the earwax literally coming out of your ear. What's happening in there is that the vibrational frequency that's going on in your neck is literally breaking up all the junk that's been in your muscles, your joints, and inside of your ear canal, right? Um,
Yep.
and I mean, you seem to be doing a lot better. I mean, I remember when I first saw you, you looked like you were pretty tense. After an hour of you wearing that device, there was a much difference. The coloring came back in your face. Like you were more relaxed. Like you had more of a positive experience. And then when you told me about that earwax thing, actually I never heard of that before, of that happening. But then I look more into it, and yeah, that can happen because it's breaking up all that stuff. So that frequency does two things. It cleans out your muscles, and it also cleans out the pathways for the nerves to be able to fire appropriately, right? For those light signals to be able to go from the brain to the rest of your bodies to be able to perform at your optimum performance. If you have any micro tears in your like rotator cuff or muscles in your neck, back, what have you, or if you have spinal or cerebral tissue decay, the frequency in that product will help to regenerate that. So the way that you can get that product is you can go to our distributor website. Right now, we are partnered up with mekretail.com. And I have a discount code that I will give to your audience. And I know that we gave you the vendor discount at the fair, which is 40% off of the product. I'll go ahead and extend that to your audience, and we'll put that coupon code I can share with you, so you can put that in your product notes. But yeah, you can just go out online and you can buy the product. If you want more information on the science behind that, you can go to hideout.com and it gives you all those details and information on that. We are actively building our One Love Wellness site. We're redesigning it right now, but that would be onelovewellness.com. And on that site, you can have access to information not only on the medical devices, but on the mental emotional wellness pillar, and the financial wellness pillar of our business, which on our mental and emotional wellness side of the family pillar, we offer gut supplements that help with the brain. So there's new science that are coming out that we actually have three brains, not one. And of course, our first brain is the one that we think with consciousness. That's where all the light is housed. That's where all the synapses are happening that control the rest of our body. But we also have a gut brain axis where they're saying that our stomach is actually our second brain. And the way that we treat our stomach is going to affect the way that we think, feel, and act. So we've found through literally decades of research and development into holistic products that when you ingest these products, they help to revive natural cells in your body to help with your mental wellness, to be able to restore neural pathways, to break off negative pathways that are causing somebody to be stuck and have inflammation. So we have that as well. And then our financial side, like I mentioned, I do have a program that I'm developing right now that's called the One Love Leadership Collective, and that is for individuals like yourself who are looking for that competitive edge. To be able to take yourself as an entrepreneur and the most important, the minimum viable product in your business to multiple seven figures in revenue by taking another set of supplements that we have that bring your brain into a state of I would say extreme mental acuity, kind of similar to that movie Limitless. Have you seen that movie Limitless?
Yep, yep.
So the people that I'm working with have amazing entrepreneurs who are passionate about helping people, have developed a natural, holistic, healthy product that when you take this product, I mean, it literally feels like you're on that movie Limitless, and you have, a lot of focus, and it helps with your mental stability as well. So we have all those things, and then obviously I have a coaching program with the Leadership Collective that I take people through essentially a 12-week program that leads up to a convention type retreat in the middle of the forest, because like you, I'm a very avid outdoors person. I love camping, I love fishing, I love being out in nature. That's where I get most of my visionary ideas, and that's where a lot of my work actually gets done. I'll sit with my laptop out there, next to a lake and get work done. So but yeah, so that's kind of what I have going on right now. Like I said, all this information I can leave with you in your so you can share with your audience. And next time, if you want to dive more into deeper topics or discuss different industries, we could do that. But I really wanted this conversation to kind of just go with the flow and have an open conversation, and I feel that it went well. And I appreciate having me on the show. If anybody has any questions or want to reach out to me directly, you can find me online. My name is Greg Romero. You can just look me up. My main place that I live is on LinkedIn. So if you are a professional, you want to connect me on LinkedIn, go ahead and do that. I am on Facebook as well. And then I have an Instagram that's called Decode the Mystic. And I go into more of the more esoteric kind of belief system that I have right now that my life has brought me to. So that's all in a nutshell of who I am and what I've got going on.
Yeah, that's great, man. Greg, I really appreciate this. Thank you. And you guys listening should definitely reach out to him if you have any questions, because he's a great guy and he's definitely willing to help out. And I'll leave the contact of everything we talked about in the show notes for you guys to find those.
Yeah. And one
So,
last mention, I
yeah,
do have a podcast of myself. The podcast I'm mentioning is called Beautifully Broken Podcast. And I focus on individuals who have been through life adversities. I know you had, and I had talked about that a little bit. You had to go through some therapy. So I just challenge people and invite them to come on my platform and not be afraid to be open and vulnerable. And because when we're open and vulnerable with each other, uh, we can have the opportunity to help each other heal. And my objective, my whole mission in life is to build people up, not tear people down. So that's what I want to do. So if anybody is struggling with any mental, emotional issues, addiction patterns that you can't just seem to break free from, then reach out to me and I can help you to give you the tools to be able to help break yourself free of those things. So thanks again, Travis. Really appreciate your time.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Uh, I'm gonna